Kakashi and Kabuto have a very unique relationship in the Naruto series. Kishimoto builds them up as rivals, which is something very much forgotten, and for good reason. Kishimoto doesn't deliver upon the promise that Kakashi and Kabuto would grow to become great rivals in the series, but the build-up is there, and it is very interesting actually. So in this video, I would like to take a look at Kakashi and Kabuto's relationship and how Kishimoto could have developed their rivalry. So why am I saying that Kakashi and Kabuto were built up as rivals? Well, that's first because Orochimaru and Jiraiya both compare Kabuto's strength to Kakashi's strength. When Kabuto's about to go and try to kill Sasuke in the hospital wing, Orochimaru says, "Oh, there's no way you can kill me, Kabuto, so if you want to stop me, you're gonna have to kill Sasuke, cause you're no stronger than Kakashi." In the Search for Tsunade arc, where Naruto wants to fight against Kabuto and participate in the battle there, Jiraiya's like, no, you can't do anything, you're too weak here, Naruto. Kabuto is at the same level as Kakashi, you're a level below, so just stay out of it. So clearly there is something very obvious being built up here. Kakashi and Kabuto are peers when it comes to their strength. And we see that at least in Naruto Part 1, Kakashi was far below the Sannin. That's very obvious when we see how Kakashi and Orochimaru's confrontation played out. Sure, Kakashi ignited his Raikiri and everything, but he was so terrified he saw himself being beheaded by Orochimaru in his own mind. And when Orochimaru leaves, he realizes, oh, I'm a real fool here. I had no chance to do anything, I was just posing, I guess. So in Part 1, they're a level below the sun, and even though Kabuto does pretty well against Tsunade, but that was a nerfed Tsunade before she got her convictions back. So am I saying that Kakashi and Kabuto were built up as rivals just because Kabuto's strength was compared to Kakashi's strength on two occasions by two important characters? It's not just that, there's way more to it. If you don't remember, when Kabuto goes to try and kill Sasuke in the hospital wing, Kakashi shows up and stops him, and they have a brief scuffle there. That is a very interesting scene, I have to say, because the way they fight is very shinobi-like. Kabuto tosses a scalpel at Kakashi through his armhole, between his arm and his torso, and Kakashi catches it. Kabuto tried to catch Kakashi from essentially a blind spot, and then they have a quite interesting conversation. And this conversation, I imagine, was how their rivalry would play out had it continued. Kakashi tries to be assertive towards Kabuto, using his seniority and greater experience, but Kabuto is having none of that, and he is being very sly, like Kabuto usually is. So you can see this very different type of relationship between enemies, but one of them is essentially a senpai and the other is a kohai. It works very well for Kabuto's character because his entire personality is built up around being very disrespectful towards people when they're not his quote-unquote overlord like Orochimaru. And disrespecting somebody like Kakashi, a very famous ninja with great prestige, is just exactly what you're going to expect from Kabuto. And Kakashi, though, he wants to prove that he is stronger than this guy who is younger than him, and when they actually fight in the hospital wing, it's a very quick exchange. Kakashi disarms Kabuto and pins him down, however, that wasn't the real Kabuto. A clone stands up and tries to flee, but then Kakashi, a shadow clone, shows up on the door and stops him, but no, actually that was not Kabuto. Kabuto was disguised as one of the corpses, and then he just jumps out of the window and flees. Kakashi is really impressed by what Kabuto achieved there by stopping his heart and hiding among the corpses while reactivating corpses to play the role of Kabuto in that exchange, and he thinks that if a young guy like Kabuto can do that, it means Kakashi is getting obsolete, and he realizes, okay, I'm gonna have to work harder if I want to beat Kabuto next time, because that's very interesting. That's what a rivalry is supposed to do, right? Your rival is supposed to make you want to get stronger to beat him, and that's exactly what Kabuto does here. Even though Kabuto is younger, Kakashi is so impressed by what Kabuto was capable of that the next time we see Kakashi, he is literally training. That's the only time we see Kakashi training in the series, if you don't count fillers, of course. Remember that scene of Kakashi climbing that mountain with an arm tied behind his back? He needs to use the first inner gate in order to climb the whole thing, and that's when Sasuke shows up asking for Kakashi's training, and then they learn the Chidori and everything. But as Kakashi is climbing that mountain, he realizes, oh god, I'm washed. How could I let my body get this weak? Because that's interesting. Kakashi is essentially not in his prime in Naruto Part 1. After everything that happened regarding Kakashi's backstory, especially after he kills Rin, but also regarding Obito's death and his father's death, Kakashi's potential is never fully reached, and he's not working as hard as it could have been in Naruto Part 1, for example, and the months leading up to him becoming the sensei of Team 7. So Kakashi is certainly not at his prime, and we can kinda see a glimpse of that in the Land of Waves arc when he is very much struggling to defeat Zabuza in their first fight. He needs the help of Team 7, and when Kakashi locks in and gets pissed about what Zabuza does to Haku, he essentially destroys Zabuza very quickly, casually so even. And this first encounter Kakashi has with Kabuto Kabuto when he realizes Kabuto is no ordinary genin, that he's actually a spy for Orochimaru, is when Kakashi also understands that he needs to work harder if he wants to be useful for his village and protect those he cares for. That's a great start for a rivalry. And yes, obviously, Kakashi has his main rivalry with Guy, but Guy is an ally and a friend. It is a rivalry, but it's not very antagonistic. It's not nearly as antagonistic as Naruto and Sasuke, for example. And I'm talking about Naruto and Sasuke before Sasuke leaves the village. So you could give another rivalry for Kakashi and Kabuto. And yes, Kakashi would eventually have another rival in Obito, a rival that he had in the past and that he's going to have in the future in the war arc. But the rivalry with Obito is not a classic rivalry like Kakashi and Guy or Naruto and Sasuke. And that's because they don't have many encounters over the series. We see the flashback and then we see that in the war arc. And then they eventually become allies in the war arc anyways. Also, the relationship between Kakashi and Obito is much different because they're the same age. And yes, Kakashi and Obito are the same age. I made a video about that. Some people still think Obito is 4 years older than Kakashi or something like that. No, they're about the same age. Kakashi and Guy are also the same age, and they have a very different dynamic. Guy's a much more cheerful guy. But Kabuto would give something quite interesting for Kakashi. This pesky rival that's actually very nasty in an anime. And because he is younger, and Kakashi is trying to make sure he won't be surpassed by somebody younger than him, that could be pretty interesting. And in the Konoha Crush arc, when Orochimaru and his forces attack the Leaf Village, Kabuto is there coordinating the Sound Ninja forces to attack the arena, disguised in an Ambu mask, and he doesn't do anything. Kakashi says at the end of the arc, "Oh, you just stood there, huh, Kabuto?" Showing Kabuto that he actually knew that it was Kabuto all along. So Kabuto didn't really fight in the invasion, he was just kinda there. He takes off his mask and says, "Oh, so you knew, huh? That's interesting." Kabuto calls for retreats, and Kakashi says, "Oh, running away from me again?" Because he ran away from Kakashi the first time, and now Kabuto says, "Yes, I'll run away because I don't want to show my jutsu so you can copy it." So another sly that Kabuto throws at Kakashi. And then he even says, "Although it seems like you haven't mastered that eye as completely as a member of the Uchiha clan could have," another sly, and Kabuto leaves. The thing is, he pretty much promises that they're going to have an encounter again, because Kabuto says, "For now, I'm running away from you." This is a setup. It's setting up their rivalry. And even though they didn't actually fight here, it also sets up this theme that, oh, Kabuto is always escaping Kakashi. He's very slick and annoying. And because they're supposed to be around the same level of strength, you gather that, oh, okay, yeah, they're gonna have an encounter later in Naruto Shippuden maybe, or even in Naruto Part 1. But no, actually this is the last time Kakashi and Kabuto interact, which just seems like a waste, and also a setup that was never paid off. So when could Kakashi and Kabuto have another fight? Now, there are many occasions I see gaps in the narrative for them to actually have a confrontation. But the way I would set up this rivalry would be that Kakashi and Kabuto would always have these small fights. They don't go all out, and Kabuto eventually escapes. And they could have several of those. If you don't have to make a fight that's gonna go all the way through until a character dies or is wounded or completely defeated, you can actually make something quick if a character escapes. That's exactly what happens in the first fight in the hospital when Kabuto just jumps through the window. And you could build up this theme of Kakashi trying to make sure he's not gonna be surpassed by Kabuto and have the relationship evolve in the meantime. They are two characters that are considered to be geniuses, and having them interact in a battle scenario is always going to be fun. So the first obvious opportunity for Kakashi and Kabuto to fight again is during the Konoha Crush arc. Kabuto just stands there and does nothing, but there were a lot of things going on at the same time, so Kishimoto had to focus on other stuff, but at least they exchange a few words, and that could also build up to their rivalry. So that's fine. After all, the way this rivalry will be built is by not having fights that go all out, so having just an exchange of words is also interesting here. And I don't want to do major rewrites for these fights to be put in the story, so obviously Kakashi wouldn't be able to fight Kabuto in the Search for Tsunade arc because he doesn't go along with Jiraiya and Naruto, because first of all, that wouldn't make sense narratively, but also Kakashi was bedridden because of Itachi's Tsukiyomi. So the next great opportunity that you would have for Kakashi and Kabuto to fight is actually during the Sasuke retrieval arc. Remember when Kakashi finds out that Sasuke left the village and Tsunade sent 5 genins after him? Well, he wasn't too happy about that, and he got pretty desperate. Oh god, no, what did he do? Kakashi immediately goes after them, using his dogs to track their scents, and even though he rushes as fast as he can towards the battle that Sasuke and Naruto are having in the Valley of the End, he is too late to catch Sasuke. He only finds Naruto unconscious there. But what if instead the reason of him being late is simply because Kabuto interfered? You know, Kabuto was pretty invested in bringing Sasuke to Orochimaru because he wanted to help out his master and everything. everything. He even manipulated Kimimaru, who was essentially going to die in the next day, to go out there and fight, because he was worried the Sound 4 team wouldn't be able to finish the task, and rightfully so. If Kimimaru didn't go there, they would have actually captured Sasuke back. But what if Kabuto, after sending Kimimaru, after overseeing Orochimaru's body exchange, he himself goes there? Okay, now that I got Orochimaru a new body, that he's not going to simply die if I don't give him medicine and everything, I can go and make sure Sasuke will be brought to him. And that would work well in the timeline, because this would be at the end of the arc, the exact same time when Kakashi finds out about what's going on and goes after Naruto and Sasuke. Kabuto could do that earlier so he could reach Kakashi, who was behind Naruto and Sasuke, so he kind of bypasses Sasuke and Naruto. Maybe he even sees Sasuke along the way and encounters Kakashi. And this would probably work better if Kabuto goes to meet Kakashi as Naruto and Sasuke are already fighting, just like Kakashi goes after them during their fight. It would work to ramp up the tension, but there are a few problems with this as well. Not everything works, because if you take a close look at the Sasuke retrieval arc, before the Naruto vs Sasuke fight, there are several things happening at once. The arc constantly jumps from fight to fight. There are a few points when 3 or 4 fights are happening at the same time, but when we get to Naruto vs Sasuke, everything stops. We focus only on that. The last fight to end before Naruto vs Sasuke starts is going to be Lee and Gaara vs Kimimaru, and then immediately after that, we see the Valley of the End. And that's for very good reason. This is the climactic end of Naruto Part 1. It has to be very much focused on, and it is the best fight in the series and the best fight in the shonen genre, so yeah, it's a good thing that it has a lot of focus. So by throwing Kabuto versus Kakashi intertwined with this fight, it could work, but it could also take away a little bit from the focus of Naruto versus Sasuke, because obviously Kakashi and Kabuto's rivalry is not as important as Naruto versus Sasuke, so you would diminish the focus in how special this final fight between Naruto and Sasuke was. However, it could still have some interesting effects, because it just feels tragic when Kakashi doesn't reach Naruto and Sasuke in time. That's simply because he arrived in the Leaf Village too late from his mission. But if Kabuto was at fault here, if he was the one who made Kakashi late, that first would obviously add a lot to their rivalry, because Kabuto made Kakashi lose his pupil, someone he deeply cared about, but also it would make Kakashi feel very guilty, because, well, he couldn't go to Sasuke because Kabuto stopped him. He wasn't strong enough to overpower Kabuto and quickly go towards the fight of Naruto and Sasuke. This would also provide some fuel to Kakashi's character and how he's going to grow in Naruto Shippuden. And this fight wouldn't be to the death, it wouldn't even be to defeat. No, Kabuto only needs to stall Kakashi, which is great to play up his annoyance when he is around. Like, can you imagine how annoyed the audience would be at Kabuto if he was delaying Kakashi and Naruto and Sasuke were fighting at the same time and everything is going downhill? How much the audience would be rooting for Kakashi to destroy Kabuto, but he takes too long and Kabuto flees, keeping up that motif of Kabuto always escaping Kakashi, and Kakashi feeling like he wasn't powerful enough to win the fight. Can you imagine Kabuto provoking Kakashi? Oh, Sasuke's not gonna be your pupil anymore. He's Orochimaru's now. You're too weak to teach him. I don't know. Obviously, you can come up with better dialogue than that, but it could be very interesting. The problem is taken away from the focus. Then again, if we don't see a lot of that fight, if it is just kind of implying that Kabuto did a pretty good job stalling Kakashi, this would be enough, and it probably wouldn't take too much away from the Naruto vs Sasuke fight. Because at the end of the day, Naruto vs Sasuke are two Genins fighting each other. If we put two Jonins fighting each other alongside that, the epicness of Naruto vs Sasuke could be diminished. After all, two much more powerful ninjas are having a fight at the same time. But if the fight doesn't have a lot of pages and doesn't have many extremely powerful attacks or things like that, I think it could work. Moving on to Naruto Shippuden, Kabuto's not involved in the Kazekage rescue arc, and Kakashi is not involved in the Tenchi Bridge arc, so that's a no-no. Even though if you were to rewrite Kakashi actually being present in the Tenchi Bridge arc, you could definitely do a Kakashi versus Kabuto there. That would be perfect. Yes, you would have to remove Yamato, but Yamato is kind of irrelevant for the entire series. Mechanically, he's very useful to subdue the Nine Tails if Naruto goes crazy, but Kakashi was also doing that with that paper that Jiraiya gave him. You could write something around that. Oh, Kakashi is fine now. He's not in the hospital anymore. Maybe they have to wait a month for the meeting between Sasori's informant and Sasori, and not just 2 weeks, meaning that Kakashi could go. And then I guess for the subduing of the Nine Tails, you could just do, oh, Kakashi knows a jutsu. One of the 1,000 jutsus he's copied is very good at sealing the chakra of a tail beast or something. Maybe it synergizes with the necklace that Naruto has, because that's how Yamato does. Obviously, it wouldn't be a wood-style jutsu that Kakashi would use, but you can do something. And while the Nine Tails is fighting Orochimaru, Kabuto would be fighting Kakashi. That just this makes sense. And again, Kabuto would just have to delay Kakashi long enough for Orochimaru to regroup with him so they can go back to the hideout. Yes, Kakashi would also encounter Sasuke in this arc if he were to be rewritten this way, and we could have some very interesting line exchanges between Kabuto and Kakashi as Kakashi realizes Sasuke has gotten so much stronger than he had ever imagined, and simply some more development for this rivalry. Now for the Akatsuki suppression arc, Kabuto's not playing a part there, so no, Kakashi wouldn't have a fight with him. But for the next arc, the Itachi Pursuit arc, this arc is very much undercooked when it comes to the Leaf Village characters. Sasuke fight against Deidara is great, but the other stuff that's happening is kind of inconsequential. However, one of the things that happen in that arc is that Kabuto gives that book about the Akatsuki to Naruto, while Naruto is accompanied by Yamato and Hinata, and Naruto even has a quick taijutsu exchange with Kabuto, and that's when it's revealed that, oh, Kabuto has got Orochimaru chakra in him, he did something weird. But what if Kabuto actually fought Kakashi there? It would be a very good way for you to set up Kabuto's new powers that he is gaining with Orochimaru's chakra. Obviously, he wouldn't be as strong as he eventually becomes in the war arc, but having him fight Kakashi, and maybe this fight can go a little bit longer than the others. Maybe Kabuto was like, yeah, I want to give you guys the book because I want you guys to destroy the Akatsuki for me, but instead of giving it to Naruto, Kabuto chooses Kakashi because of all the history they have. And Kakashi's like, wait, you want to give me a book? No, I'm gonna capture you, dude. I'm gonna fight you. You could have that fight. You could have Kabuto using new Orochimaru stuff. You could maybe even have Kakashi using his Mangekyou Sharingan, having this fight stretch a bit longer, having them go through more of their powers, and eventually having Kabuto escape as reinforcements from the Leaf Battalion arrive. Because, yeah, I guess the only reason Kabuto gives the book to Naruto specifically there is because Naruto is the main character. They're not really building up anything between Naruto and Kabuto because Naruto never meets Kabuto again after that point. Well, maybe he meets him after the war ends, but that's inconsequential for the narrative here. Like, I guess you could say Naruto, quote-unquote, met Kabuto again when Kabuto was controlling Nagato via the Edo Tensei link, but that's not really the case, right? So giving it to Kakashi in this hypothetical scenario would be much more interesting. And yeah, Kabuto would want to do that, give it to Kakashi specifically, even though Kakashi is the strongest member of that battalion because he's my quote-unquote rival, and I want to be very sly, just like I always am. So I'm like, oh yes, Kakashi, I want to help you out. Kill some Akatsukis for me. It could add some different spices to the rivalry here. And this is a time in the story that demanded some more meat to it. Really? A Leaf Battalion is leaving the village going after Itachi and they essentially do nothing? If you gave Kakashi this fight against Kabuto, you would at least get something. After here, though, it gets a little bit more complicated for you to fit in Kakashi versus Kabuto fights. Obviously, they wouldn't fight in the Pain arc. It would make no sense. I don't really see a place. I mean, why would Kabuto be around the 5 Kage Summit so they could encounter each other? I don't really see that happening. And in the War arc, Kabuto gets really damn powerful with the Edo Tensei with Sage Mode. And yes, Kakashi also gets very, very powerful in the War, especially when he gets the DMS. But that's, you know, something that's not gonna happen for a Kabuto fight. But even Kakashi before the DMS in the War arc is so much more powerful than his previous versions that, no, Kakashi wouldn't be able to beat Sage Mode Kabuto, but I think he would at least give him a little trouble. The problem is, it just doesn't fit. Kakashi in the War is much more geared towards Obito's character when it comes to a rivalry, I guess you could say. And Kabuto is being built up to face Itachi and Sasuke. I don't see how you can change that in a very organic way without rewriting a lot of things, which leads me to believe that the final confrontation between Kakashi and Kabuto would have to be the one in the Itachi Pursuit arc. Especially if you had those other confrontations before the Itachi Pursuit arc that lead up to this final confrontation. It could be very interesting. Now, obviously, Kakashi and Kabuto couldn't die there, and they would also have to escape. Kabuto is very relevant later, Kakashi is very relevant later as well. So having this finale for the rivalry here would be difficult to write because it would have to be satisfactory, and yet both characters would have to flee. And there would also have to be some sort of emotional and thematic resolution to their rivalry if this is the final fight. I guess there are ways for you to do that, but it's very difficult. And obviously, it's something you would have to be writing before, right? Something that's going to build up over time, over the Kakashi versus Kabuto fights. Perhaps their rivalry finally ends because Kabuto is deciding to help Kakashi out, giving the Akatsuki bingo book. And maybe if you want to give it some clear resolution, you could show Kakashi actually beating Kabuto, but for some reason letting him go. Like, as a thank you for the book. I mean, I know the book's not very strong of a reason for you to not imprison Kabuto at least, but I guess you could also do something else, because I really don't see any other rather optimal scenario for Kakashi and Kabuto to have a fight after here. Like in the war arc, they're locked in battle against different opponents at the same time. In that very important section of the story when Kabuto is fighting against Itachi and Sasuke, Obito is fighting against Naruto, Killer Bee Guy, and Kakashi, and Madara is fighting against the 5 Kage. And this is probably one of the reasons why Kishimoto didn't follow through with this rivalry, because it's simply difficult for you to fit in the story he wanted to tell. Now, yeah, he could have rewritten the story so this rivalry would fit better, but then again, this is not his priority in the Naruto series. And I guess it just became one of those forgotten setups that Kishimoto kinda said, yeah, no, I think I'm not gonna do this one. I changed my mind. Let me know in the comments what you think about this rivalry here. How would you write it? Also, watch this other video right here for you to find out if Kabuto could beat Kakashi in Naruto Part 1, if they had a real fight. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, ring notifications, those are very important, and thank you so much for watching.